Hello all, welcome to Paritranaya. In this video, we shall discuss about inflation. Inflation is a very important topic from UPSC civil service examination point of view. So when it comes to inflation, the government uses two different measures or two different tools to gauge the inflation. One is consumer price index based inflation, another one is wholesale price index based inflation. But before discussing this, what is inflation? Inflation is the general rise in the price of the commodities. That is called as inflation. For example, a pen costs 10 rupees in the month of January. In the month of February, the pen costs increases to 11 rupees. So now this is what increase in the price of the pen or a commodity is called as inflation. So what is the rate of increase? It is 10%. Okay. Initially the price was 10 rupees. Now it has become 11 rupees. So the inflation is 10%. Now, whether there should be any inflation or not, or should the inflation be always zero? So these are the various questions which haunt us continuously. So inflation, ideally it should not be zero. Okay, there should be some percentage of inflation. But what is that ideal percentage of inflation? Who decides it? So all these things we'll be discussing later on. For time being, we shall only focus on two aspects which are used by the government to gauge the inflation. One is consumer price index based inflation. Another one is wholesale price index based inflation. So from the exam point of view, we have compiled these things. So this much information would be sufficient to tackle any kind of question which appears on inflation with respect to consumer price and wholesale price index based inflation. So what are the things important here? So the first thing that we need to understand is who releases this data. So if you observe here, consumer price index based inflation data is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Whereas wholesale price index based inflation data is released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Next, base year, they have taken 2012 as 100. Similarly, the same extends to wholesale price index as well. So what is this, that base year? We shall see later on. Next, very important. So Monetary Policy Committee of RBI, it decides the key policy rates based on the changes in consumer price index. So in detail, we'll be discussing about the Monetary Policy Committee of RBI and what are key policy rates in the later videos. For time being, we shall understand that key policy rates. So now let us assume the bank loans which I get or which I take. So the bank loan has a rate of interest. So that rate of interest is governed by what? There should be some governing figure for it. So here the rate of interest at which I receive the loan from the bank is determined in turn by the key policy rates which have been set by Monetary Policy Committee. Okay. So we shall for time being not go into the details of all these aspects. So later on we shall discuss. For time being, we shall assume that Monetary Policy Committee, whenever it wants to change the key policy rates, it will change based on consumer price index and not on wholesale price index. Not on wholesale price index. Next, very important is components of consumer price index and components of wholesale price index. So if you look here, the components of CPI and WPI, both of them are different. And I have written the components in the descending order of the weights. It means the component of the consumer price index which enjoys the highest weight is food and beverages. So whether these weights are important, okay, the highest weight, this is important. So rest all the other weights, these values are not important. These values are not important, but the order is very important. It means the highest weightage is enjoyed by food and beverages. Next is miscellaneous. Third is housing. Fourth is fuel and light. Fifth is clothing and footwear. And the last one is pan, tobacco and intoxicants. So this order is important. But when it comes to value, only if we memorize the value corresponding to food and beverages, that would be sufficient. Next, similarly, when it comes to components and weights of wholesale price index, we have manufactured products, primary articles, fuel and power. Here also, I have specified weights. So in the decreasing order. So here also, all the values are not important. Only this value is important. So manufactured products, it enjoys the highest weightage within the wholesale price index, and its weight is 64. So rest all, just order is important. First is manufactured product, next is primary articles, and third one is fuel and power. Next, apart from this, in wholesale price index, what we need to understand is what is the weightage of food. Okay, so here food is a separate entity, so we got to know about its weight. Its weight is 45.86. When it comes to wholesale price index, food is not a separate entity here. So after taking the components of food out of manufactured food and primary articles, we get the weightage of food as 25. So this 25, this value is important. We have to memorize it. So weightage of food in the wholesale price index is 25. Weightage of manufactured product is 64. So these are the various information pertaining to consumer price index and wholesale price index, which we are supposed to memorize from the examination point of view, and this information is very important. Now based upon this, we shall see how the questions can be framed in UPSC. Okay, so try to answer these questions through comment box. So the first 3 questions are true or false kind of questions, and next is a multiple choice question. So here, first question: data pertaining to wholesale price index is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. You have to indicate whether it is true or false. Primary article is one of a component of consumer price index. Again, you have to indicate by true or false. Share of manufactured products in wholesale price index is more than the share of all the other components put together. Here also you have to indicate your answer by true or false. Here you have to, it's a multiple choice question. You should comment which is the correct answer for this. So consider the following statements. The weightage of food in consumer price index is higher than that in wholesale price index. 1. The wholesale price index does not capture changes in the prices of services which CPI does. Third, Reserve Bank of India has now adopted wholesale price index as its key measure of inflation and to decide on changing the key policy rates. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. So if you understood the concepts properly, then you will be able to answer all these questions. Okay. In this video, we have discussed about the inflation and different types of tools used by the government to measure inflation. That is consumer price index based inflation and wholesale price index based inflation. Similarly, in the subsequent videos, we will be discussing about the other important topics related to economics. For all our further updates, subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon. Thank you.